I think that you have to make sure that there's cross-training. Your court system needs to understand the behavioral aspects and vice versa. There's a different language, and there needs to be a common set of definitions and framework from which to talk about what you're going to be doing. The other thing I think that is very important is defining the roles of your team. Prosecutors define their role, public defenders define their role, and so forth. And then the rest of the team got to define everyone else's roles. And the team was able to have a discussion. Not only was it the roles and expectations of that role, but it was also the challenges to that role. A prosecutor might have a challenge of this being an adversarial system, making sure that the laws are followed, and how that fits into a team model, and looking at different ways to dispose of a case that looks at recovery for a person and a better disposition to treat issues that the person might be having to not re-enter the criminal justice system again. So by defining those roles, you have a good playing field to build the rest of your team model and descriptions, the levels, the sanctions, incentives, the team responses that you're going to have, and the accountability that's going to be had on your team about who does what.
I think in working with the or the multidisciplinary team, one of the biggest things that I have found that works is trying to find what brings them to the table in the first place and continuing to build upon that common ground as you move forward. When there becomes roadblocks or hurdles, I think it's always important as a facilitator not to be the dictator of this is what you should do, but here's the research, this is what it says, and try to help the team facilitate and interact with one another to come to an agreement. Because ultimately they're the ones that are going to have to live with the decisions that they make. And so as a facilitator, if we can help the jurisdictions and the people on that team understand at least what the research is that's out there and allow them to work through that process without dictating this is the way you should do it, but maybe give examples. I think not only does that help them come to a conclusion, but it helps them to, they've had to go through a process as a team, so when they hit struggles or challenges down the road, they know how to interact with one another.
Some of the biggest challenges for a trainer or a facilitator of a curriculum is you can't be an expert in all disciplines. So you really want to be perceived with credibility and trust. So I'm always very careful whenever I'm facilitating, particularly a planning team, whether it be drug court, mental health court, or another, is to have respect for the different disciplines and acknowledge their expertise and their level in their different disciplines. And even I even try to include and request that they talk about some of their like ethical or association, professional affiliation. Like with treatment providers, confidentiality is a big issue. Same thing with, codes, canons for judges, ethics for lawyers, ethics for probation officers. I mean, each discipline has its own professional ethics and standards, and it's important for the other team members to recognize that people just don't say, well, I can't tell you, because it's a power thing. It's, there's legitimate reasons behind a lot of that, and to try to be understanding and respectful of each other, each discipline, because they're critical. You need each discipline in your team.